just leave them on the counter. I'll get them. Hey folks, sorry for the delay. Actually forgot my glasses, had to run back upstairs. Seem to be blocked in a little corner here. Give me a minute to get set up. Looks like we got a few people in. Big Herb, how's it going, brother? He, good friend of mine, lives out in the desert of Arizona. Actually, he lives in Phoenix, but it's close enough to the desert. Aiden Phelps, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Lovely Amore, however that's pronounced. Thanks again for joining. All right. So I can read these comments here without squinting and staring at my phone. It's hot in the desert. Yeah, it's hot here too, brother. I think the high today was 80 or 91, which isn't so bad. 91 where you are is lovely, but the humidity was, I mean, just standing outside in the shade, just pouring down sweat. It was horrible. Pouring down sweat. So, all right, I'm good to go here. I got my comments open so I can see what people are saying without staring at the phone. How we doing angle-wise? Excellent. How everybody doing today? It's Sunday. The weekend's almost over. That kind of sucks. The weekends are definitely not long enough, at least for me. I would prefer longer weekends, but what are you going to do? You know, I decided, I don't know if anyone saw it. I did a video early on, maybe 2 months ago, on a little, not to change the subject, but I'll explain some of this mess here. I did a video early on about a little mini fishing rod, little tiny fishing rod. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to put a little mini fishing rod in my emergency bag or my kit. Couldn't come up with a decision, and I guess finally I did, because I remembered that I had this little guy, this little 3-footer, a little ultralight with a little reel. I had this rod for maybe about 10 years. I've never even used it. It's just been sitting there. I don't even remember where I got it. The reel I've had probably for close to 30 years. Sadly, this does not come apart. It's not a 2-piece rod. That's the only downside to it, but I think I'm going to add this to my kit. Where I live, there is no shortage of waterways. I noticed it, you know, after I had made the comment about not certain whether or not I wanted to put a fishing rod in my kit or not. And then I just started noticing as I was going through my daily, you know, routine for work. You know, I travel a lot for work, and I started noticing all the different waterways that I was near, and there is no shortage of them. So if I was, you know, far enough away from home where I couldn't utilize my vehicle to get home in an emergency, that I would have to use my emergency bag and go on foot. I only have a couple of days worth of food in the bag. Having the fishing rod, you know, it doesn't take, you know, 15 minutes to, you know, stop by a little stream or a little waterway, you know, throw a few casts and just see. I ordered this tiny little fishing box. It's just a little maybe 4-inch by 7-inch waterproof fishing box that I put a few things in. So this will probably go in my kit. Now, the part that I'm not excited about is, you know, I went through all of these tackle boxes and have 5 of them out because that's how much fishing garbage I have. And I figured I would pull out, you know, just some basic small things just to put in the little box, which the little box turned into 2 little boxes. So I'm not really happy with that yet. Hence why it's not in the kit yet. It's still here on the table because I couldn't fit everything in one box. I'm going to have to reduce it down. I really want it all to fit in this one box uh, because I don't want to put two boxes. It doesn't weigh nothing, just a few ounces, but I don't want the space is the concern. So not done with this project yet. I'm fine with the rod. You know, it'll bungee to the molly on the side of the pack. I'm not even sure if I'll leave the reel on it. That may just go in a pocket. You know, I have some pocket space available for not only the small box but probably the reel as well. So I don't really know how I'm going to set it up yet. I haven't gotten that far with it, but that's why I have all this mess out. So now that that's all out of my way, now first thing, I got a video that hit 1,000 views. Woohoo! Never saw that coming. It was the video on footwear, as a matter of fact. You know, most of my videos get pretty low views. You know, I'm a fairly new channel. I don't get a lot of, the algorithm doesn't like me just yet, I guess, or just people are just not really digging my videos. I don't know. You know, I get a lot of feedback. You know, a lot of positive feedback from them, so that's why I keep doing it, and I enjoy it. But I did get one that hit 1,000 views, so that was super cool. For those of you that watched the footwear video, appreciate it. It is an important thing. You know, footwear is vital, actually. You know, if you have to traverse a large distance and you don't have the proper footwear, you're going to struggle. So, yeah, thanks, bud. Appreciate it. 1,000 views. It was awesome. I saw it the other day. I'm like, whoa, that says 1,000. Holy smoke. I was really surprised. So that's cool. Second thing, I put out a post earlier today giving a shout out to another channel. I don't know if any of you watch it, but I'm a big fan of the Survival Dispatch channel. If everyone who watches like it, yes, comment, share it. It helps with the algorithm. It just gets it out there. I'm a big fan of the Survival Dispatch Network. I've been watching Chris Haven and his guys for years. They give, you know, good straight up news. They do a lot of bushcraft and outdoors type topics and a lot of firearms stuff. You know, I really dig, and they have a bunch of guys that all contribute to it. And one of them, a lot of them have their own side channel as well. And then they'll also upload videos to the Survival Dispatch Network. So, but one of the guys there, he put out a video about a week ago where he's having some health issues. He's got to get surgery, and I just wanted to give a shout out. And that was the reason for the post. JJ at Fuel the Fires. You know, quick recovery, man. You know, if you're watching this, if you're home laid up from your surgery and you're bored watching me on YouTube, first of all, I appreciate it, man. But you know, quick recovery, man. Get you back out there and get some content in there, and you know, you'll be missed. So hopefully it'll be a short recovery, and you'll be back in the saddle and getting us out there. I know he did a video. Him and I were doing not collaborated or anything. It was just coincidence, but he was building like a budget kind of AR build, and I was doing mine at the same time. You know, so I was watching his videos and he was watching mine because he was commenting on some of them. You know, and his came out phenomenal. He even actually got it out to the range and it shoots well. He's done an optics swap now. I think he put an ACOG on. I don't remember his last video, but you know, he's a little ahead of me with mine. I just got mine together a week ago. Haven't had time to even shoot it yet. So the gas block's not tuned. I'm not even sure if it'll cycle. So it needs some time out at the range for testing. And so he's definitely ahead of me, but it was fun to watch his videos, you know, knowing that, you know, we're right around the same spot, you know, but he just brought it home a lot quicker than I did. So, you know, props to him, and, you know, I'll miss him while he's gone. Hopefully his recovery's short, and he'll be okay. So seems like a good dude. He does, you know, a lot of videos, gets a lot of great content out there. And, you know, a lot of times with these YouTubers, you know, you hear tragic stories or any type of story that, gets them off of YouTube, and you don't know why. They just, oh, I haven't seen your videos in a while, and then you find out from another YouTuber later, that something had happened, or I never like hearing about that stuff. I know, I never watched any of his videos, but there was a guy out in Europe who was doing a lot of backpacking and those type videos, and I watched those as well. And he was out, winter storm rolled in, a blizzard, and didn't work out for him too well, and he ended up dying on a mountain somewhere. And that's just a shame. I went back and watched some of his content. He had great videos for about a year, just a lot of different stuff on backpacking and trail hiking and trail camping. And I like watching that stuff, so I never want to hear anything bad about any of the people that we watch. Certainly not. And of course, also in my post, I put in there that I'm trying to get the other half. We'll just call her Doc. She has, her and I talked about it about a week ago about, if this live thing grows, and I start to get a bigger viewership, and being able to interact with the viewers, right now it's pretty small. I got, 7 people watching, and, any comments or questions that you guys throw in there, I can catch them. And, but, if there's, 100 or more people in there and they're commenting and putting in questions and stuff, I don't know if I'd be able to keep up with that. So having somebody, if you watch The Sensible Prepper, he does a live show on Tuesdays, and he gets a lot of viewers. I know I watch every Tuesday on my lunch break right at 12 o'clock. I'm usually eating lunch then or somewhere around then, so I can, take the time to open up his live and, watch him. And he has his daughter off camera, and she fields questions, and it's great. So it takes a little bit off of him, and he can kind of focus on the video itself. And it's prepper school is what it is. And, every week he does a different subject. I think last week's was, just, which is something I'm going to move into next, was, his video was on, like situational awareness because of the heightened possibility of terror attacks. We've all watched the news, and we all see what's going on, with the world, and stress enough about situational awareness. Just paying attention to what's going on around you. If you go into a restaurant or a bar or something, know where the exits are. If you park your car in a parking garage, take note of what floor you're on and about where your car is. And I hear stories all the time about people, they parked in the garage and forgot what floor they were on, or they didn't think to look what floor. They parked in a parking lot somewhere and they don't remember where they parked. And, it's being a little more aware of what's going on around you, and you're surrounded. Grab the camera for a Lamar Jackson edit. I don't get that. Grab the camera for a Lamar Jackson edit. I don't get that. GB Fishing. What's up, man? GB Fishing. I don't even know who that is. Do I know you? Grab the camera. Oh, yeah. Take the picture of your car spot. Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. Last week, 2 weeks ago, for Father's Day, my oldest surprised me and took me to the Oriole game. It was pretty cool. He drove. All I had to do was get in the car and ride down there with him. And, we parked in a parking garage, and the first thing I did when we got out the car is I looked around. I was like, all right, we're on floor 5. There's the elevator. Looks like when you come out of the elevator, turn left, we'll find the car. And he said, yeah, I always worry about losing my car. I was like, well, if you take note of where your car is when you walk away from it, you should be able to find it when you come back. And yeah, that makes sense. But again, paying attention to your surroundings and just, knowing where the exits are. I was talking to the other half, here at dinner a little while ago, and she was asking me what I wanted to talk about for my live. And I said, I think I want to, at least touch on, all of this news that we're hearing about the possibility of, some sort of terror attack or, incident, that, I think people should need to pay more attention. And she had made the comment about the bar or the club in Florida, not the one where somebody walked in and shot the place up, but the one that caught fire. And the reason that so many people, this was a couple of years ago, I think, the reason that so many people perished in that is because they didn't know where the exits were. They were in a packed club, and a fire broke out, and they didn't know where the door was. They didn't know where to run to. So, I think it's important to always, take note of where your exits are. When you're in any type of establishment, whether it's a restaurant or a bar or a ball game or anything, just know where your exits are. In case there is an emergency, and you need to, beat feet, and get out of the place, because it's on fire. God forbid somebody's shooting up the place. There was that bar in Florida where the guy went in and just mowed people down. That's horrible. I'm glad I've never seen anything like that, and I feel bad for all the people that were in that bar that had to go through that. Same with the guy up in Maine, that just started unleashing. Just none of that's necessary, man. I realize everybody's a little stressed and maybe a little scared. There's a lot going on right now, but adding to it with all that nonsense is just it's unnecessary. So, as just regular day-to-day people, I think it's important to just be aware of your surroundings. If you're sitting in traffic, don't pull up so close to the guy in front of you that if something does happen, you can't get out. You're so close. Leave a space in front of your vehicle, because if something should happen and you got to get out, if you have that space in front of you, you could pull out. You could pull out and go another direction and get away from it all. But I see it all the time. I drive a pickup, which is pretty, tall in the back, because of the tailgate. And there's times where I can barely see the tip of a roof that somebody, I'm sitting in traffic, and the guy behind me, he is so close on my bumper that I can barely see a little sliver of roof. That's how close, I can't see him in either of my mirrors because he's too close. I'm thinking, if something should happen, buddy, you're trapped. If I'm trapped, you're trapped. You're lucky that I have a cushion in front of me, that if something should happen, I got a place I can escape to. I can get out. The only chance he's got is if I get out, he can follow me. But otherwise, when you're that close, you're done. So, just, people be aware. I see it all the time on the internet, all the videos that are floating around about the ceasefire getting broken, and the threat level for, anything that could happen here, because of what's going on over there. So just, I want everybody to be safe. So just, keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel. And, I'm not saying to go hide in your house. That's ridiculous. Live your life, do your normal thing. Just do it paying more attention. If something doesn't look right, chances are it's not. Avoid it. Go the other way. Go around it. It's as simple as that. So that's enough for that. Upcoming videos. I did one today. I spent my day filming today. I haven't had a chance to do any editing. I'm going to be doing that probably Tuesday, and I'll try to get the video up on Tuesday. But other than that, I got a few ideas, nothing major. I'll probably do some more filming on Tuesday. I'm not quite sure yet. I'll narrow it down between then and now. But, I try to get some new content up about every 3 days. I know last week I didn't put any up because Sunday I dropped 2 at a time to cover the whole week. And those were my recipe videos for the Camp Scampi and the Western Omelet breakfast burritos. Not a lot of viewership on them, so I don't know if maybe people aren't going camping. Maybe just people prefer a hot dog on a stick. I don't know. I like eating a little bit better food when I'm camping, but I can't speak for everyone. So maybe we'll do some more camping recipe videos. I know it was mentioned to me a couple of days ago. I was on the phone with Herb, actually, who is viewing right now. He had said I should start, doing more cooking videos. I do all the cooking in this house. That I should do some segments, cooking. So maybe I'll consider it. Today for dinner I made burgers and gravy with onions and mushrooms and mashed potatoes, green beans, corn, and mac and cheese. It was pretty basic, turned out well. Oh, the like button? It's a thumbs up button, dude. Money. Easy money. I like that. You hate this. Well, then why are you watching? You got a thumb? Swipe. Yeah. What do you want me to tell you? I'm a Gen Xer, man. We don't dance around that kind of stuff. If you don't like it, don't watch. So, but if you like it, hit me a thumbs up. Because my next topic might apply to you. I saw something the other day that let's move into the next topic. I'm sitting here and bust Easy Money's balls. Gen X, you don't know what that is? You don't want to find out. That's funny. Yeah, everybody does love Easy Money though. Damn right. Okay, moving on. The other day I noticed something, and it's probably been out for a while and I just hadn't been paying attention, but I noticed this guy had this it was his cell phone, but it was like a wallet as well. I was at the Wawa getting coffee, I think, and he had this, like, it was like a wallet that held his cell phone and had all his his credit cards and all that, and I thought, wow, that's pretty convenient, having everything in one place. Gen X, no. Gen X was long before Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and who was it? Big Daddy Diesel. What did he turn into? What was his name there towards the end? I don't remember, but yeah, I know who Generation X is, and no, we were Gen X. Yeah, so this guy had this like wallet, and it was like a wallet, but it was a phone case, and I thought, wow, that's cool. And then I started thinking about it after I saw it. I was like, well, what happens if you lose your phone? Lose that. You've lost everything. I mean, I guess it's no different than losing your wallet that's in your pocket. But I'm thinking nowadays, having a, just an old school conventional wallet isn't really something that people do, that men do anymore. I mean, is it? I don't know. I've always carried a wallet. I know at least one person in this this chat room here. I know he carries a wallet, but I don't know anybody else. I mean, do you all carry wallets? Let me know. I carry a wallet. It stays in my back pocket. I've never lost a phone, but I did lose a pager once. Funny story. It ended up going down a toilet. In fact, the guy in the chat, my friend Herb, he saw it. Mama says you can't. What, you can't have a wallet? Really? That's kind of weird, dude. So yeah, I've never lost a phone, but I've broken a couple. Dropped them and broke the screen where I couldn't. You're a QT? That's not a generation, dude. There's the baby boomers, which were my parents, and then there's the Gen Xers, and then after that was the millennials, and then the Gen Zs, and now the newest generation is like kids under 16, and I forget what that generation is called. Supposedly they're supposed to be worse than the Gen Xers as far as like their attitude and they're supposed to be like Gen X. Gen Z pisses me off. Yeah, sometimes me too. But my kids are Gen Z, so it's really kind of biased because they piss me off sometimes. But again, back to the wild thing. Before I go getting off tangent. What happens if I was thinking about what happens if you lose that? You have basically all your eggs in one basket. You got your phone, you got your credit cards, your driver's license. I don't know if you keep money in your pockets. Young kids are badasses. Yeah, that's sarcasm because I know who it's coming from. What happens if you lose it all? I mean, what happens if maybe you're at a restaurant or a bar and you sit it down and you turn away for a second and it's gone. Somebody swipes it, or maybe you go to get in the car. In fact, I did break a pager that way. I was getting in my car and the clip fell off my pocket and it landed like right on the door jamb as I was closing the door, and it just crunched it. Um, so, ooh, what is this nonsense? Okay, there we go. So yeah, when you have that, and I love the idea, the concept of, the phone with everything all in one, and it opened up like a wallet. It was pretty cool that this guy had, and I thought, wow, that's convenient. Everything's all in one place. But then, like I said, when I started thinking about it, what do you do if you lose it or it gets stolen? Now, at least if I set my phone down and turn away for a minute and somebody steals my phone, I'm really not, up the creek without a paddle because my wallet's in my pocket. uh, you know um, Another thing that is pretty common nowadays is, does anyone know any phone numbers off the top of their head? I mean, back in my day when I was a teenager, I bet I could remember 35 phone numbers. In fact, one of the dudes in this chat, him and I have had the same phone number for 20 plus years, and I could rattle, I'm not going to do it, Herb, but I could rattle his phone number right off the top of my head, and it's saved in my phone. But my oldest son's phone, I don't know his number. Digital ID and credit cards in your iPhone. Ooh, yeah, we have that here too. You know, but I have actual plastic credit cards in my wallet. Old school, and I have actual cash in my pocket. I'm old school. Yeah, so yeah, I'm not going to put your phone number out there, dude. But yes, him and I have been friends a long time, and long before cell phones. So when his cell phone, when he first got that number, cell phones didn't have much phone list memory. You couldn't save too many numbers, so it was just easier to dial it. And then me living in Pennsylvania, I lived in an area for 15 years. And for 10 of those years, I didn't even have a cell phone because there was no cell phone service there. Literally, you could stand there and it was nothing. The phone didn't do a damn thing, but it was a paperweight. So I had a line. So literally, every time I would need to call him, I would literally have to pick up the phone, beep, 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 push the buttons, hey, what's going on, big dog? So, but, back to it, if you have that phone wallet thing with your ID and your credit cards and your phone, and that gets stolen or you lose it, do you know anyone's phone number you can call for help? You're out somewhere and all of a sudden your phone's gone. You don't know anybody's phone number, so you can't borrow someone's phone to call them. You don't have a credit card, your credit cards were in the thing, so not in your pocket. You got no cash in your pocket because it was in your thing. I love the concept, but I don't think it's something that I would ever implement into my own life because it kind of puts all my eggs in one basket. I prefer to have a little bit of cash stashed in the truck, and I usually keep some cash stashed in the truck, all through, ever since I was 16 and started driving, I kept a key for my car in my wallet. Back in the day, cars took two keys. One got you in the door or the trunk, and the other one started it. It was two different keys, one for the door and or the trunk, and the other one for the ignition. Back then, I would keep a door key in my wallet and then keep a ignition key hidden inside the car somewhere, to where if I was out and about, maybe fishing or out, messing around with some buddies or crabbing or whatever, and I lost my keys, I could at least get in my car. I had money stashed in my car. My wallet, chances are of me losing my wallet out of my pocket and my keys at the same time, pretty slim. So, having my wallet, I at least had a key to my car and could get in the car. Now, my truck now, it has a key. I know a lot of y'all out there got newer vehicles. They don't even have a key anymore. It's just a little fob, box. So, you lose that, you're screwed. You ain't going anywhere. You're thumbing it on the side of the road. But my truck at least has a key. But I do not, I have a spare key, but I don't keep it in my wallet because the key has the unlock and lock buttons and the panic button and all that nonsense on it. So it just doesn't fit in the wallet anymore. So I keep it stashed actually in the truck to where, sadly, if I did lose my keys, I would have to break into the truck with, a coat hanger or rust a window or something, but at least I wouldn't be stranded. And if I lost my phone and my keys, that at least I know phone numbers. I know my, the wife's phone number, and I know my buddy in Arizona's phone number. That's about the only two that I know. Herb knows. What's Herb know? Herb knows a lot. He ain't no young guy. He's my age. Actually, he's a little younger than me, about a month. And I'm an old guy. So, but anyway, the phone wallet thing. I love the concept, but I really think that people should give some consideration to the consequences of putting all your eggs in one basket. Meaning, if you're out somewhere and you sit it down, like at a restaurant, or maybe you're at the grocery store and you set it in the cart, and when you're done, you get your groceries. Really? FAFO, boss. uh, and you get your groceries out, and you leave it in the first section, where a kid would sit in the grocery cart. And then you come back, you realize it after you've left the parking lot. Oh shit, I left my phone. Let me turn around to you. By then somebody's already snatched it, man. So, having that, some cash in your vehicle, in case you were to lose it, at least you got some money. Having, some phone numbers written down on a piece of paper, maybe laminate it, put it in the glove box or the center console, a brother or a sister or a friend or a parent or a spouse, something that, if something should happen, you lose your phone, at least you could call somebody, hey, I'm calling from some stranger's phone, let me borrow it. And, I lost my phone and I lost my wallet, can you come help me out? And, I like to think that most people would, unless you live, 2,000 miles away, ain't much you can do about it, but make other calls, but again, my son, hell, he lives in the same house as me. If something should happen to me, I don't know his number. I'd have to borrow someone's phone, call Herb in Arizona, have him call my son here in Maryland to come get me off the side of the road or wherever I was because I lost my phone. It's ridiculous. So laminated. Why do you think that's funny? It's like this old school plasticky stuff that back in the day we used to put on this, some paper or something to keep it protected from weather. Lamination. It's a thing. You should look it up on that Google thing here, boss. So yeah, the wallet thing. I love the concept, but I'd get you dialed in. Yes, you would, brother. But I'm not sure about putting all my eggs in one basket. I like the fact that, if I did lose my wallet, with my phone, I could cancel all my credit cards in 5 minutes. Herbie and I have been around a long time. We've done a lot of drinking and partying together, boss. Lamination doesn't even to begin to describe the destruction that we've caused in 40 years. So, but anyway, it only takes a couple of minutes to cancel your credit cards. And if something should hit your credit account because somebody stole your credit cards, a dispute with your credit company, is a few clicks on your app. Nowadays it's pretty simple and they take it off. So I think having all your eggs in one basket is not such a good idea. I love the concept though. And I'm not saying, for anybody that would consider that not to do it, it's a choice. Probably not one that I would make because I'd be a little afraid that it would get lost or stolen. And then, I'd be screwed. I got no phone, I got no credit cards, I got nothing. So having my stuff, my phone is hooked to a little tripod thing right now in front of me, because I'm using my phone for this live. But my wallet's in my pocket. My cash is in a different pocket. I have enough phone numbers in my head, the important ones that, um, if I were to lose my phone, I could call someone. I have a couple of phone numbers memorized, so that's a good thing. So, palantir, what the hell does that mean? Not more than a palantir? I don't even know what that word is, boss. Palantir? This dude is fuck it, man. Yeah, I love it, man. Fuck it, man. What happened to easy money? I guess he couldn't take it. Gen Xers were too much for him. Um, Dog tag on my keys has reunited me with them a few times. Oh yeah, one of those tracker things. Yeah, I was talking to the other half at dinner about that. About parking in a parking garage, or parking somewhere and losing your car. That one of those air tags or something, would be helpful. So having a tag on your keys. In fact, I think my son, my oldest, I think he lost his keys once recently. A couple of years ago. Um, and that's what prompted him to put one of those air tags, or maybe he lost his wallet and ended up it was down because he didn't have it in his back pocket. He was putting like in the front pocket of his cargo shorts or something, and he's got a desk in his room with like a gaming chair and these screens and all this nonsense, and it was actually down in the edge of the chair. He found it like 3 days later, but he thought he lost his wallet, so he ended up putting one of those air tag things in there, um, just in case it would happen again, he could at least track it. So, uh, like a private CIA, yeah, no doubt. Um, so I don't, my wallet stays in my pocket, until I get ready for bed. I take all my stuff out of my pockets and I lay it on the dresser just like everybody else, or at least just like people my age. I have an area where I lay stuff out, and then I go get ready for bed. And in the morning, when I get up, I go to get dressed and all my stuff is right there. I just put it all back in and it pretty much stays. I got my normal EDC and the stuff, my knife, my flashlight. I got some cash. I got a wallet, and that's about it. That's about all I got in my pockets. So, the phone wallet thing, I love the concept, but I'm not sure if I would do that. And I would definitely recommend to anybody who does, or at least finds themselves putting all of their eggs in one basket, meaning, that with something as simple as, sitting it down on the bar, or sitting it down at the table at the restaurant, and like having your attention somewhere else, it could be gone that quick, and then what are you going to do? You don't remember any phone numbers. Young people lose their phones. They literally lose their minds. Exactly. You know why? You know why young people lose their minds when they lose their phones? Because everything is in that phone. Every phone number, every, their Apple Pay, and everything is in that phone. They've put all their eggs in one basket. So if you don't want to, their phone is their life. Exactly. It's their phone is not their life. It's just a tool to use, but they think that their phone is. So, I know I pulled my analytics the other day, about a week ago, and the majority of my viewers are, 45 and up age wise, and that's to be expected. I don't see too many 25-year-olds watching my channel, but I'm sure there are. So, yes, can all be replaced easily enough. So, I just don't think it's such a good idea. I think that it's probably partially our fault as Gen Xers. We never taught them any differently. We never taught them that you need to secure things. You need to have phone numbers. A couple of phone numbers memorized. It's not hard. Not having your credit cards and everything tied into otherwise you're gonna have to tether it to yourself. Like back in our day, chain wallets were a thing. Yeah, anybody who's under 30 watching, back in our day we had that hooked to your belt loop. That's how, because we didn't want to lose our wallet, so we hooked up a chain to it in case it fell out of our pocket. And I don't know if they still have chain wallets anymore. I don't even know if I even ever had a chain wallet, but maybe they need chain phone cases, a phone case that's got a chain that hooks to your belt loop, or maybe that could be something that somebody could invent, you know, invent a phone case that's got a chain that hooks to your wrist, like a leash, like your little dog, So your phone case, it's always attached to you. It's hooked to you by a chain, Now watch, a month from now, you'll see them all over freaking Temu. There'll be, chain phone cases all over Temu. So yeah. All right. Let's wrap this up. I got to get up at 4:00 in the morning for work, so I didn't want to be long doing this. One thing I do want to say is I bought this book about a year ago. The guy Such that does the Sensible Prepper show on Tuesdays, he also has a firearms channel that he does called Such. What's it say? The young kids would think they're cool like a biker. Yeah, if they had a chain wallet, yeah, they would think they were cool. It takes more than a chain wallet to be cool there, bud. This book here, with all of the nonsense that we see on the internet with possibility of terror attacks, and they talk about the devaluation of the dollar, and the tariffs are going to crash the economy, and yada yada yada. I don't know if I'd buy into even 10% of it, but they still put out there. I think a lot of it's fear mongering, but if you really want to know what happens and what it's truly like to be in a first world society like the United States, a first world country, get this book, Surviving the Economic Collapse. This book was written by this dude for FAL, and it is a first-hand experience of, because he lives in Argentina, and in 2001, they had a bunch of shady shit going on with their government, and ended up their economy just plummeted, collapsed in a short amount of time. Their country didn't collapse, but things got very difficult and very ugly in their country. And they were a first world country. They were big on the trading market, and they weren't some third world Central American country. They had a booming economy. Argentina is one of the top, I think, 15 oil producers in the world. Believe it or not, Argentina, they produce a shit ton of oil. So, but basically, this guy, he lived through it. Him and his family, his wife and his kids, they live in Argentina. And they lived through it. And he wrote a book about it. And this is basically a detailed book on the kind of stuff that happened and how he avoided it. So this is basically a how-to guide. If something should happen here, boom. This is reference material. This is a how-to guide. So I would definitely recommend this book. It's not a difficult read. It's not very thick. In fact, the other, she's got a bookmarker in here. I've already read it twice, actually. But she started reading it not long ago. So she's got a paint swatch in here as a bookmark. So I grabbed it off the desk upstairs. It's not on the bookshelf where it should have been because she pulled it down and started reading it. So you can get it on Amazon. I could probably put a link somewhere for you, but really you can just search for FAL. Here's the guy's name, FERFAL, for FAL. There you go, right there. Is that backwards? Looks backwards for me. Is it backwards for y'all? Oh yeah, no shit. I'm watching it on this screen. Okay, it's FERFAL. It's called Surviving the Economic Collapse. It's the modern survival manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse. I don't know how to get it to be. That's ridiculously stupid. Why is it inverted? Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that to see why it shouldn't be. If it should be because that's the design of this technology, then I think it's stupid. But yeah, I would definitely recommend getting this book. It's not a difficult read. It only took me about a day and a half or so. I sat down and read 2/3 of it in one shot. The print's not super small, but it's not overly big neither. So it was a fairly easy read, and you can tell the guy's not a writer. It doesn't read like a professionally written book, but it's written well enough to where you get the gist. But it's the information that it's giving you that's what's important. So I would definitely recommend, backwards. Yeah, that's weird, that it's backwards. So yeah, all right, that about does it. How many people? 5 people. Woohoo! Yeah, I guess nobody had anything better to do on a Sunday night, just like me. So, all right, let's check it out. Fuck it, man. And who's this? Groot Max. Of course, Herb, Easy Money. Who else? If y'all are still in here, GB Fishing, Aiden Phelps, Lovely Amore. I don't even know who those people are, but thanks for watching. It looks like about everybody. Appreciate everybody watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and all that nonsense. It does help out with the algorithm. I should have a video coming up Tuesday, maybe midday is when I'll get it out. I still got to do some editing. I made all the footage today. It's pretty cool. I actually went outside and actually did a project and filmed the whole thing. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty important information for for emergency preparedness. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that one does. So in the meantime, keep your head on a swivel, folks, and remember the ABCs. Always be carrying. So till the next time, we'll see you later.